The Guardians dominated the Colorado Rockies on Tuesday night, but all eyes are on the trade deadline and what the Guardians will do next.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a winning Wednesday episode of Locked On Guardians. The Guardians dominated the Rockies on Tuesday night. The trade deadline is approaching. This is, of course, Locked On Guardians, the only show in town that is covering your Cleveland Guardians every day, from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. It's our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it is yours as well. I'm Justin Lada. I have been watching Cleveland Guardians baseball since I was born. I've been hosting this podcast with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis for almost going on 3 years now. And before that, I still am providing prospect analysis, scouting reports on the Guardians farm system. I've been doing so since 2007.
As he said, I am Jeff Ellis, recording from my mother's house. I'm almost living up to the stereotype. Sadly, I am not in the basement because the reception doesn't work well. But as mentioned, I've been here since the beginning with Locked On and baseball. For that, I was a national writer at Scouting 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. Yes, I did just throw my pen, if you were paying close attention. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time. Little ones are above me, small chance of noise. We'll work through it. I want to thank all of our everydayers for joining us today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. And I also, at the end of the show, I'm going to give a shout out to someone who commented that I intentionally didn't respond to, but I want to give a shout out to all of our everydayers for joining us through thick and thin, through drama, and through exceptional play.
Yes, we've had the whole spectrum of things, especially recently this season. On today's show, we'll get into the Guardians beating the Rockies and what looked good there. We'll talk about what to build off of there. But we got to talk about the trade market. Will they trade Steven Kwan? What would that look like? What was his market? We have to first talk about Shane Bieber, who rehabbed in Akron on Tuesday. Looked pretty darn good, and we'll talk about what his market looks like. Before we get into all of that today, this episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONLB for $20 off your first purchase. That was probably the best start from Shane Bieber I've seen in going back to last season, obviously, but it was pretty darn good. 92, 94 at the fastball, through all of his breaking stuff. His changeup looked good. Obviously, that's been a thing he's been searching for his whole career. He's never really had. It looked really good. And I know everyone's going to say, well, he dominated a bunch of double-A hitters. Yes, that's true. The stuff was still looking good. And I will say this, at least. He faced a lineup that is really good. If you're going to face a double-A lineup, the Erie Seawolves, the Tigers double-A affiliate, is the one you're going to face. He faced 3 top 100 prospects right in a row between Max Clark, Dairon Lorenzo, and Kevin McGonigal. And he dominated them each the first time through. So that was good. And there were countless scouts there who were looking at him. And honestly, that was a good audition for Eddie. As good as it's going to get. His next start can't come until Sunday, which will be past the trade deadline. And he right now is tentatively scheduled to start in Akron on Sunday again. But Jeff, I think it's very highly doubtful that he makes that start Sunday as a member of the Guardians organization. So hopefully you got a chance to watch MLB TV on Tuesday, and you got to see him and Travis Bazzana play together, because I think that's the only time it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm kind of up and down on it just because I don't know what value he actually can have. Just because it's minor league starts. Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal are great, but they're 20 and 21. It's the stuff can be good. But the year before that, it was 2 great games. And the year before that was arguably the worst year of his career. So it really comes down to what are they looking for? And then let's be, honest with it. If there would even consider the qualifying offer due to it being $21 million, no matter how well he were to come back and pitch. That is just a cat, by the way, in the background. That is not a child, for those who are
Don't
worried.
trade Shane Bieber. Wow, your cat's got a very interesting vocabulary.
It's a Seal Point Siamese over there. They're loud cats. It's a situation where, I could see either way. But I think people are gonna get so mad about this because everyone always wants to focus on money. But I think part of the calculus with the trade with him honestly comes down to how much money they're willing to send, because he does have that $4 million buyout that he's likely to take. And for a team maybe doesn't want to have to pay him an extra $4 million. That might get them a better prospect. But yeah, it's just interesting because a lot of the teams right now are talking about wanting a starter for this year and in the future. There's a lot of teams lacking depth, and that's what we've talked about all season. This team went out and made trades to that starting pitching depth. So, like, what can you get for him? It doesn't. I feel like the innate value is going to be less than you're going to get a worse prospect than you would if you did give him the qualifying offer and he left and you got, pick 31 in the draft. That's where I feel like they would be now in terms of this. So that's where it is. But you're getting that player sooner, you're getting him into your system sooner, and you don't have to like wait and gamble that who you like is going to be there. So that's the give and take. And that's why, though, I think it is likely a worse prospect. It's probably like one like B or C level prospect, and then maybe an outlier flyer, either someone who's good stats, not great tools, or someone who's a lotto ticket who you're hoping you find the next Junior Caminero or Fernando Tatis, but you're likely going to have the next Victor Nova. So that's what you're looking for in a situation like this. Wouldn't surprise me. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of reason in a lot of levels to hold on to him. Especially because if he pitches well, he's gone anyways. So,
right, exactly. And I don't even know if we're going to give him the qualifying offer. Let's be honest about that too, because it's not something we have a whole lot of basis for. Like who was the last player they gave the qualifying offer to? I can't even think about it because
it was probably Carlos Santana.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it
was the Jordan Sheffield.
Justice Sheffield. So yeah, they really don't. They don't really get that far down the road.
No.
And if Bieber pitches well enough, yeah, he's going to turn down the qualifying offer. You get a pick. And I agree with that. And I don't think you're going to get, I think in theory, like you're right, you would get a better prospect with pick 31 in the draft, whatever it is, than you would in this trade because of the uncertainty. But like you said, you're getting someone who can come into your system earlier and maybe you've identified. I think also too, we have to be cognizant of the fact that Cleveland's better at identifying talent in these types of trades.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, we can talk about how they goofed on the Junior Caminero thing and Tobias Myers. Like, that is what it is. And I know, we're talking off air about not to focus on that. But outside of that, this is the kind of trade they normally do well on. I think you're looking at like the Alex Cobb scenario, kind of, where Alex Cobb got, Jacob Bresnahan and Nate Furman, and Furman hasn't pitched all year or played all year. Cobb hasn't pitched all year either, but for Detroit. And Bresnahan has.
Did you hear he got $16 million? I don't think we talked about it.
I think it was 17. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to talk about it this year. Maybe sometime in the future. But I think you're looking at a similar return for that. And the question really is, like, who's looking for starting pitching? I think the market's going to be there. Like, yeah, you're not going to get a top 100 prospect, but you can get a pretty decent player. Because I don't think there's a lot of starting pitching that's going to move on this market. Like, what starting pitchers do you think are going to be traded? Because, like, there's Sandy Alcantara, Edward Cabrera. The White Sox have... Adrian Hauser. I would take a gamble. Yeah, there's Savali and ironically enough, Savali and Hauser. I'd probably take my gamble on Bieber before I take the gamble on Savali, because at least you can. It depends if you're looking for depth, because are you looking for a guy and you're hoping a guy who can start like game 3 of the playoffs for you?
I don't think you can guarantee that though with Bieber. That's the problem. Like, you are purely a gamble. So if you're a team, you can't take him with the intention of him being your 3 starter. There can be no intention of that.
The teams that need pitching are the things we have to identify. So we'll talk about who needs pitching next, and then we'll get into the Steven Kwan deal, and if that makes sense for the Guardians to do, and where that would leave them hanging if they were to deal Kwan. So we'll touch on all of that on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. We've all been there before. Logging on early. We're trying to go to concerts, get tickets on sale. And we know the internet is unreliable. So rooms are unreliable. And you lose your spot for a show you're dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That is where Game Time comes in. I know I have sat online before and tried to buy concert tickets. I've tried to buy tickets to a lot of things, only to sit there and wait and not get a great deal. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier. Whenever prices drop closer to showtime, you can actually save up to 60% with killer last-minute deals with Game Time. You don't have to wait for scrolling. You don't have to panic about prices. You don't have to worry about, am I going to get stuck in a terrible seat? Because Game Time takes all that out of the equation for you. It shows you where the best deals are. It gives you the best prices available with the added in fees at the end. So you know exactly what the total price is at the end. and you always know where you're going to be sitting. So take the guesswork out of buying your concert or event tickets. It was Game Time. Download Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Jeff, let's see which teams need pitching at the deadline. Who's going for pitching? The Yankees probably would like to add a starter, I would assume. The Red Sox, we know, want to add a starter, and we know the Red Sox were interested in Shane Bieber over the offseason. He actually turned down more money to not go to Boston to come back to Cleveland. The Cubs need a starter. I have a hard time believing the Guardians and Cubs actually match up on paper because their system is a little bit top. It's a good system, but it's top heavy, and obviously you're not getting a top 100 prospect for Shane Bieber. I'm kind of looking at the Red Sox because of the fact that they had contact over the offseason. I think the Red Sox make the most sense here. And they've got a great farm system up and down too. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I think it depends on what pitchers move and who needs pitching and what you're trying to gamble on. Because we go back to what we said before, 100% right that they're not going to – I feel like they're just not going to give the qualifying offer. I think they'd rather avoid that because there is no reason – to hang on to him at this point. Like they're not going for anything in the playoffs at this point, and it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to take the risk. They've already gotten this far down the line. There's really not a whole lot of need for him. But as long as there's a market for him, I think you move him. And I do think the Red Sox make the most sense.
I'll throw two wrenches in your Red Sox plan. One, when you look at the Red Sox themselves, it's not a great rotation, but he's probably lined up to be either 3 or 4. And the other thing about Shane Bieber too is he's been atrocious in his few postseason appearances. So I always kind of wonder how that's going to affect. Like his overall ERA is terrible. Now
he was great in 2022.
One bad game. He had one good and then one mediocre that year. So it's more that his first game was terrible and it's affected all of his stats to such a degree. He had that awesome start against Tampa, and then against the Yankees he was solid. I wonder for a team like Boston, like outside of going out and getting Garrett Crochet, they've been almost, it feels like by reports, trying to add smaller pieces or trying to add catchers. And the thing I'll say is I actually think their minors is not that great. Like when you look at a lot of their rankings, unless you're big on some of their lesser guys, it's a top heavy system. Like it's not a system that I love. And you're not getting a top 10 prospect for Shane Bieber. Let's be honest. You're not getting any of those guys. So then once you get into the 11 to 12 range, the thing I don't know well enough about Boston right now is like who is expected to be back. Like I think it's very interesting that Hunter Dobbins is only on the 15-day disabled list with a torn knee ligament, but so is Tanner Houck. And that's the thing. It's like if they get Houck back, I guess right now you probably put Bieber in over Giolito, but I got to be honest, I haven't looked at what Giolito's done this year. It's not been great. So, I mean, I think you're right. Like that is a smart fit because I don't think, like when I looked at Toronto, arguably their 5 is Max Scherzer, and I don't know how much of a for sure improvement that is. In Philly, Tajon Walker, I don't know how big of an improvement that is. So Boston, I think, is a good call. I'm just, like I said, you're probably trying to get, very, as you said, something very similar to Alex Cobb, which is a guy who's like maybe a
top 30,
15 to 20 range, than a guy who's like gets consideration for the top 30.
Yeah. The other thing too to consider in Bieber's value is this too: a team that trades for him can't also offer him a qualifying offer. So whoever he goes to, they are really renting him because if he pitches his butt off, which I think he could, and that's the thing the scouts were there to determine on Tuesday at Akron, is not really who he faced, but really how did the quality of the stuff look? What was the spin rate? What was the velocity? Did he look strong? All those things, the traits factor that we usually talk about, not necessarily the stuff. So the team acquiring him cannot offer him the qualifying offer. So he really is just a gun for hire, as it were, when they get him. And that impacts what teams are willing to pay because they know that whoever they give up, they're just getting, a couple of months out of him and hoping that he doesn't pick up the qualifying or pick up his option, which I don't think he will if he pitches good. So that impacts what you can get for him.
And that's the big final point on him too, is like, if he pitches really well, then a team's going to argue, well, if he pitches great, we lose him. but we're taking the risk that he opts in. So there is also the whole opt-in risk, which, as we know with Josh Bell in the past, this is a much different situation because Josh Bell was terrible and they were just trying to unload him because they knew he had opted in. Here, we don't know. It's a complete unknown with Shane Bieber. He could be great. He could be terrible, but whatever team's acquiring him is like, hey, our best case is we lose him. Our worst case is we're stuck with him and he's broken. So that is also going to detract from his value because they can argue both points of that as a net negative.
I just feel like the Guardians are not going to offer him the qualifying offer no matter what. So I think it's better to just trade him just because historically they just don't do that. But we just haven't seen the situation enough to really decide what they're going to do. Let's move on to Steven Kwan because a lot of the national reports are picking up that they are potentially motivated. And I don't want to say here, I don't know where that report is coming from because remember how tight-lipped the Guardians are. Like they were doing their post-game press conference after beating the Rockies. And they were asking about Steven Vogt, who was going to be Wednesday starter because they didn't have announced one. And Vogt was like, "Are we on camera?" And someone said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll tell you after the camera's off." I'm like, so they think that they're guarding state secrets to everything, which is just hilarious. Maybe they hadn't worked through it at that point. I don't know. But so the fact that team won't even say that on the record tells you that it's very hard to believe outside of the clubhouse they're really letting it loose about who they're taking offers on. And do I think they're taking offers on Steven Kwan? Absolutely. I'm sure they're listening. I talked about it on Monday's show or Tuesday's show, I should say, that those offers that I heard for the Phillies and the Blue Jays might line up more with Steven Kwan. They might line up more with Logan Allen, who you wanted to talk about a little bit, which I think we can kind of work into segment 3. So I think it's a possibility. I think the real question there is, though, where does that leave the Guardians? Like, if you trade Steven Kwan, like we talked about before, like they haven't really dealt guys, position players that have multiple years of control. But if they feel like the situation they're forced into as far as the roster and, maybe potentially losing guys for their careers that they thought were going to be big trade chips, and they don't have anybody else to trade because if Bieber's not going to get you a big return and you don't think you're going to the playoffs this year, you don't think you have a chance in the playoffs if you did, can you get something for Steven Kwan that's going to help you reconfigure for 2026 and beyond? But I also think that's a really big risk to take because, we talked about before, I think it makes sense for the Guardians to let Steven Kwan just play out his career here and not extend him unless they could really find an offer that makes them both comfortable, which I don't think they can. But it's a bad situation to be in if they make this trade because obviously the fan base is going to be bad. I know you don't make trades based on what the fan base does and doesn't want, but given the situation this year after what's happened, it's a big risk to take in that concern, I think.
Unless you get absolutely bowled over, I don't see a point in it in trading Kwan. And the reason I say that is it's not like he's
They're not going to be forced into it. They're not going to be forced into it, right?
But I sometimes they make these trades, or I'm like, I don't understand why. Like, there's always those, and yes, they're smarter than me. Sometimes I also get a little too clever. And the thing with Kwan is, you're selling at peak, but who cares about selling at peak? Like this team before the Class A and Ortiz situation was a borderline playoff team. I mean, that really hurt. that kicked their teeth in. There's no way around it. Those two guys really let down their team, the city, and the fan base. That's just 100%. That's where it is. But with Kwan, you're setting up with the possibility for success. And I think it's not like you got multiple outfielders coming down the pipe who are going to knock him out. Like you're hoping in 2 years that maybe someone like Rosario is the guy. He's still a year away at least, if not 2. So to me, if you're trading him, it just opens up a new hole and you're not filling it. Like Kafis is your first baseman of the future. He's not, that's the reason he's not up right now. Though we'll see with Nolan Jones' situation. We'll talk in segment 3. Maybe he gets an opportunity. But when you have 2.5 years of control, I just don't see a point in trading him unless it's like Dalton rushing or something.
Yeah, you have to be blown away. And it depends on who's desperate enough to acquire him. And there might be teams desperate enough. We'll talk more about Kwan. We'll talk about Logan Allen. We'll talk about the Guardians and Rockies and what's next for the Guardians after that victory on Tuesday. Coming up the rest of today's Locked On Guardians.
But first, we must talk about our brand new friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavors of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're into sinking birdies or making memories with friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest. Some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I remember my first time ever went golfing with a buddy of mine and his dad, and I was miserable all day. I was a hockey player who did not happy out more it. Let's put it that way. My swing was atrocious. I was one of the worst golfers either of them had ever seen. But the last hole, right? That's what keeps you coming back. I hit a wonderful shot, nearly took out my friend's dad, who was on the green, who was playing through because he didn't think there was any chance I'd make it. Came really close to like hitting him in the head with a golf ball. It was pretty funny. Golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best part of the clubhouse to go without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5-Hour Energy today, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. That offer is valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today.
All right, Guardians and Rockies. That was a good game on Tuesday night. I think the fans did deserve that win. I think,
and good on the players, and the players as well. Like to power through, and like everyone contributed. Everyone stepped up. I mean, they're in a crap situation as well. It's it's their teammates and their friends who just let them down, and they look so deflated yesterday. And then to have everything go wrong that could have gone wrong yesterday, and then to turn around and have a win like that, to me, that's huge. That just shows fight and adversity, and that this team is still out there trying their best.
Yeah, real quickly, more on the Steven Kwan thing. I think there are teams out there that could be desperate enough to do it. I mean, we know that like the Padres are looking for a left fielder, and they have a GM who is looking to hold on to his job because it's up in the air. The question with San Diego is, do they have the prospects to get it done? It's also a very top heavy system. Like you're talking about Leo DeVries, who I know we had one comment on here who was saying like, you don't know the value of Leo DeVries. I'm like, I do know the value of Leo DeVries. So I think Leo DeVries could be a centerpiece to a Steven Kwan deal. Yes, I do, but I don't think it makes sense for the Guardians to do it because that's 4 years away. He's a teenage shortstop. I'm sorry, he's 20. He's like 3 or 4 years away. He's 18, so he's at least 3 years away.
And how many of these kids have we seen at A-ball who are really good who implode?
Yes.
How many? Ethan Salas is their number 2, and remember when he was the best prospect in baseball, and now he can't hit in AA. Like Leo DeVries does not have value. Like he's a top prospect, and that's fine, but he does not have value. You can't base a deal around a guy in A-ball. You just can't.
You can't. Not this team. No. If they were in a different spot where they were going full rebuild, I would agree. Yes. But when you have Jose Ramirez, when you're hoping for Chase DeLauder next year, you're hoping for Travis Bazzana, and you have Gavin Williams and Tanner Bybee and Logan Allen and Slade Ciccone, you're trying to win again next year. Cade Smith. So it doesn't make sense to go after a guy like Leo DeVries. The question I have though is the Padres are dangling Dylan Cease because they're not going to re-sign him. Can they flip Dylan Cease to a third team, involve a third team, and get a prospects back to Cleveland? I don't know who would acquire Dylan Cease.
Terrible this year. That's the problem. Like, what are you going to really get for a terrible?
I mean, he's still a pretty darn good pitcher. I know things haven't gone well for him, but the stuff is still there. Like, the stuff has been there. It's just I don't know what's going on with him. So we'll see what happens there. There's not a lot of outfielders on the market either. Like the outfielders on the market are like Ramon Laureano and Luis Robert Jr. So it's not a great market. So we'll see if there's a team out there that's desperate enough to do it. I just think it's a bad look for this team to trade a guy like Steven Kwan because, like you said, it has to give them the ability to come back next year and win. You can't really trade him if you're not bowled over. Like Justin Crawford, Aiden Miller, whatever deals from the Phillies doesn't work because I know Crawford could be up next year, but it doesn't really put you in a better position to win next year because you don't know what he's going to be.
Cease is a classic every other year type of guy, so why would you want to trade for him in the down year? I'll say. And then that's the thing. Like Justin Crawford, the best case scenario is he's Steven Kwan with better speed, right? Like, I mean, that's your best case scenario. He's not a power guy. He chases a lot. So he's not even really a Guardians type of guy. When I was looking at his prospect savant page, which is a site we love, like he has a lot of chase. So he doesn't make a ton of sense. Yeah, it's like unless it's the Dodgers and they're willing to talk Dalton Rushing, but like also
I agree. Dalton Rushing is the number one.
But here's the other thing too. Like, I mean, I would totally take him 100%. That's where I would talk. But the other side, like, don't look now. Bo Naylor had horrible BABIPs in the first half, and his OPS was the same as a year ago. Now he's starting to show some signs of life. I know people will get mad at me because I said anything positive about Bo Naylor.
I mean, Rushing can play the outfield too. You can put him in the outfield.
Yeah,
I would still go that route anyway because you can put him in the outfield and see what happens.
I don't know
next year.
For me, I wouldn't trade Kwan. That's just a full.
I wouldn't either. No,
you don't have a replacement.
Not unless you're getting the Godfather offer. I do think it makes sense to trade him. Like if like this isn't going to happen, but if the Dodgers offered you Dalton Rushing and Josue DePaula and whoever else, Zaire,
Alex
Hope,
Freeman, the shortstop,
right?
Who they just
Freeland, yeah. You would say, well, of course we have to take that trade. It makes too much sense, but that trade's not happening. The Dodgers aren't that desperate, so we'll see what happens. I think for sure Bieber's a goner, and I think Kwan will stay, and they'll revisit the conversation in the offseason. You mentioned Bo Naylor picking things up lately. I want to point out Kyle Manzardo, 2 home runs in this game, and I pointed this out in my post game short. I said, yes, it's the Rockies, and they've scored runs like crazy in the last 2 games against the Rockies. The bullpen blew it on Monday night after a weird day, and it was a long day. The pitching wasn't good, and it was just a long day for the team between the rain delay and the allegations and all that stuff. It's just not a good day overall. But the offense was good enough to win Monday. And Kyle Manzardo, since the All-Star break, came out of this game with a 906 OPS. And now it's going to go up because he had 2 more home runs. I really like where Manzardo's going. I talked on the show on Tuesday, Jeff, that I was worried about what the Guardians have done this year because now we're looking at them being sellers. And the 2 things in baseball you want to do is either you want to be a winning team or you want to be working towards building a winning team. And we thought coming into the year, the Guardians were a winning team. And it turns out they're really just a very mediocre team at best this year.
We don't know without the health and the suspensions. That's the one thing I'm
going to throw. There is that
pretty
too.
Big caveats that have shifted this season. It's like if you got to achieve in Class A, that's at least 1 more win, probably 2. That puts them really right in there. Maybe. And if the Lada is available for a month, if Brito's been healthy his whole career. If you have him, that's probably another win right there. I mean, all of a sudden you're talking, hey, they are in the wild card.
Maybe, yeah. So that's all, a thing here. And I'm like, okay, are they building towards next year? If you're not going to the playoffs this year, if you're not a playoff contender, if you're not a team that has real aspirations of winning in the postseason, you got to be building towards next year. Mm-hmm. And my concern was that, okay, well, if they didn't win this year, can they build towards next year? 100%. And I was like, what have they proven this year about towards next year? And I was like, you got Manzardo some at bats, you got Bo Naylor at bats, you got
Angel Martinez, you got
Angel Martinez, Slade Ciccone. So those guys all got time.
But Manzardo,
Manzardo though, taking this step forward here in the second half is certainly something that we can be very happy about going into the next year because this was his first full year in the big leagues and the first half was rough for him. But if we could see more of this going into the rest of the season, he's got now an OPS over 1,000 in the second half. That's something to hang your hat on go into the rest of the season is can Kyle Manzardo transform himself into a reliable middle of the order back going into 2026?
Can I throw 2 hot takes your way?
Oh, please do. I'm cold in my basement.
One of them is the other point in all of this too is like, I don't know the exact point, but it does feel like since everything cleared up with his mom and she got that surgery, that is also a big part of like, his mother was dying. To be very honest, she was dying. And now she's not. And that's huge. And that's a point. And then hot take number 2, find a team, even if you have to pay his whole salary, trade Santana and, get a bucket of balls. You owe him that much to like, let him find up. I mean, there are still teams out there that could potentially use him. Maybe it's Bieber and Santana to the Red Sox. I mean, when the Red Sox won that first World Series, they went out and got a defensive specialist at first base.
Doug Minkiewicz, man, that was a time.
But what they need to do is not just get rid of Santana, who, I've loved during his time here, but send down David Fry. It's just not working. And Kyle Manzardo needs to play every day, and you need to call up CJ Kafis, and he needs to play every day. And those 2 guys for the rest of the season, just have them flip-flop first base DH, give them both reps. But Fry needs to go down, and I know that'll never happen, but let those 2 guys play every day. That's my hot take.
Probably not. They mentioned that Fry might get more playing time against right-handers the rest of the year.
Which is the opposite of what you need because he's not playing well.
I know.
And
I know.
and
And
he
he's
just
not.
needs reps. So let him get those at AAA and see what you got in Kefis and Manzardo. Those two should play every day. But Vogt has those favorites. We saw Festa again today. We see David.
I mean,
Fry
this
all the
was
time.
you were up comfortably in that game. I don't have a problem with Festa in that situation. Which, by the way, Logan Allen, the longest, most pitches in a start for the Guardians since Aaron Savali in 2021. So good for Logan Allen.
He almost has a sub-4 ERA. We didn't get a chance to talk about, but I think Logan Allen has more trade value than Shane Bieber because of the team control. And like Toronto specifically and Philly are saying we want to make trades for team control because what is it, like two of Toronto starters are hitting free agency, and I think two of Phillies are as well. Like I think Ragnar Suarez.
And the back end of the rotation does stink for the Phillies for sure.
So then the
thing for the Phillies, though, I think the hard part is that they need to focus more on adding bullpen and a bat. So Logan Allen has more trade value, maybe, but the Phillies aren't going to say, well, we'll just give up more prospects for Logan Allen. They need to address more serious matters in their back of the rotation. The Blue Jays, maybe. They don't have as many issues as the Phillies do in terms of needing a bat and a bullpen guy. But yeah, I think it's hard for the Guardians to find the value in that trade because teams are going to be addressing more pressing needs than the spot Logan Allen, can fill for them. Even though I agree, I think he would be a nice trade chip, but this time of year, that might be an off-season conversation because teams aren't going to pay what it's going to take to get Logan Allen right now, and they have to address more pressing needs. Like, I don't think a 4-starter is really...
Well, you said there's no starters on the market, so if there's no starters...
There really aren't. No,
you can get across...
You're right, there aren't.
And teams want left-handed pitching, and you get a cross-controlled lefty who almost brought his ERA down to 4, has been pitching better as every month goes on, and you have 4 years of control of. I don't know. You might end up having more value than either you nor I think. I know Everyday Dave Wendell would certainly say that... and then I wanted to give a shout out to Everydayer William Banner 6035, who just discovered the podcast and was saying that.
Oh, shout out. Thanks for being here. We love all of our everydayers. We love everybody who's been here long term or just discovered us. We love you being here no matter what. We'll be back tomorrow to talk Guardians Rockies Game 3. We'll, of course, talk more trade deadline countdown. I would expect by the time that we are recording on Wednesday night, Jeff, that there has been a trade, whether it's Bieber or Santana, or I don't know, maybe Santana's like a last minute thing if he has any value at all. Thomas can't be dealt because he's hurt, has no value. Seawald can't be. We'll see if they flip Jake Junis, but I expect the Guardians to make one trade on July 30th, and then we'll see what happens as the buzzer counts down on Thursday. And then Kobe Allard, by the way, is
to maximize, take it to the limit.
It goes to 11, I guess. I don't know. Kobe Allard, your starter today in a bullpen-ish day, so the Guardians will not make a roster move. So no Parker Messick, no Doug Nikhazy, because Logan Allen was so good. They feel like they can afford that. Mm-hmm. So tune in for that, and we'll wrap it all up with the trade deadline on Thursday with you.
Yeah, I've got a family thing tomorrow evening, so a trade is 100% going to happen during that time. Thank you all for joining us, and go Guardians, go.